So right now, it feels like a lot of people will lose their jobs. And that's why it's so important to invest in their skills. What's required is that focus on helping to create the new industries that will absorb some of those jobs, but also what we think is that we'll see a much bigger shift towards individuals creating their own businesses and services. So it's about equipping people with the talent to be able to start a business, and also maybe creating some sort of guaranteed basic income scheme while we transition people from being a lawyer to being a craftsman making handmade furniture or whatever we're going to do. We need to have that sort of range of ideas and possibilities. So there's a massive risk with all these technologies that we just let the technologists and the investors drive it, and they go for efficiency. And you look at governments around the world, they want to cut their costs, businesses do. So there's a risk that we take the human out of this and we take the human element out. And that's where we need to prepare society. So we're making good ethical choices, and we're making choices with these technologies that serve humanity. The other side of it is you could see that there's a benefit, because we know that the current justice system isn't blind to who you are. And depending on what part of the country you come from, what your ethnic background is, what your gender is, what your history is, who your family are, you get a very different level of treatment. If we can create gender, race, age, location blind justice systems, you might get a fairer system out of it. And that's certainly the argument of the people who want to do this for that reason. I think a lot of the technologists are doing this simply because they can and they want to make it happen. And that's one of the things we have to recognize, is a lot of this isn't necessarily driven because we need it. It's driven by the idea that we can do it. And why don't we do it? And it's driven by people who are saying, actually, we can make a lot of money by doing this because we can cut the cost of running the courts to a fraction. Take divorce courts. Very rarely does a judge actually make a real decision. They just rubber stamp what goes through. So why do you need humans in that process when it's all about algorithms and applying formula to making decisions? So we're at a very interesting point in time. One of the challenges is we don't have enough education in society or in government to understand what we're doing or what we're making choices about. And so that's where I think we need to raise literacy across society, because of these things having such a big impact. It's very hard to see a world where everyone is being truly altruistic and saying, we'll gather your data and we won't try and make money out of it, because the biggest revenue streams for Facebook, Amazon, and the big tech players is about monetizing our data. And none of us really read the terms and conditions when we sign up. The choices we have are about not going to those people. So instead of going to Amazon Fresh, I go to my local greengrocer, who knows me because he recognizes my face, but wouldn't know what to do with the data if he collected it. And I like that. I tend to prefer independent brands that don't collect information about me. I don't want airports constantly mailing me because I flew through them once and they forced me to give them the data. So we all have to make choices, and we all have to decide when we're going to put that tinfoil hat on. But the direction of travel is more and more data being collected about us. And what we have to ensure as citizens is that we're pushing back and saying, we want the right to be anonymous though. And that's one of the good things about something like crypto, where we can make a purchase, but no one knows who we are. They just know the money's come from a certain account. And you don't need to know who we are. If you were buying flights, the government would want to know who you are, but the airline doesn't need to. BA doesn't need to know who I am. It just needs to know that governments have said I can travel, I've paid for it, but they don't need to know who I am, which is a massive shock to a lot of brands, because we've spent the last 20 years building up these giant data pools through which we can try and understand our customers better. And yeah, so it's a choice we make. And I kind of accept that Netflix will keep bugging me with what it thinks I should watch next, because I watch Game of Thrones or whatever. What we'll see is a lot of countries will introduce their own cryptocurrency. They won't be anonymous, unlike the ones that are out there. Governments will know who you are. They'll be able to track everything you do. China already has one. A lot of other countries are bringing one to market this year. So that's one thing, and that will be used for transactions and things, the marketplace. With a lot of the others, I think we'll see more and more, and there's a difference between the currencies that you buy and sell goods with, the things that are really seen as an asset like Bitcoin, which is more like digital gold, because there's a fixed supply of it. The idea is its price will appreciate over time. So you wouldn't really buy stuff with that. You'd be kind of crazy to buy a Bitcoin and buy a pizza with it because it could be worth a lot more over time. And then there are the things that, a bit like buying a share in a business, there's lots of businesses now being formed in the crypto economy. And so the tokens that you buy in those are effectively like a share in that company, but you can also use them to pay for goods and services from that company. So they're being used in different ways. So there are lots of different categories of crypto. They're likely to grow. And the only thing we would say is never invest any more than you're willing to lose. So assume you've lost it as soon as you've invested it. And do your research and decide what you want to do. Are you wanting to day trade and be looking at your phone every 20 minutes to buy and sell? Or are you just wanting to buy it and forget about it for 5 years and see what's happened to it over that time? And what we find is that with less than an hour's research, most people can learn the basics, watch a few videos and understand it. And you can demystify a lot of it that way as well. So we have a lot of clients worrying about it being a scam, being volatile, the energy consumption of Bitcoin mining, all that sort of stuff. And normally within about 10 minutes, you can dispel all that and show that most of the risks people talk about are the same as in conventional equity markets, other than the fact that crypto is unregulated. There's a few different things there. One is there's two sides to the NFTs. One is the kind of business use. So if I can take all the information about your home, like your property deeds, the searches, all of those things, and what's called minting them, if I can lock them into something that can't be changed as an NFT, then that's really valuable because you save a huge amount of time when you're buying and selling a home. It's there, it's secure, no one can change it, and you own it. So when you sell the house, you move it on. We can put your educational qualifications in there. So when someone applies for a job and says they've got a degree from Cambridge and a master's from Harvard, they haven't got a certificate for it in an NFT. You know, they haven't just created the certificate themselves online. So there's lots of good examples where there's practical business application. And the other side is, there's two other sides. One is as art, purely as art. So you know, why is a certain painting worth 1 million or £1? It's because people perceive it to be worth whatever it's worth. And so there's a perception. And all NFTs have done is transferred that physical art market to the digital world where people are creating these things. And because there's a scarcity of them, then people are buying them. The next is the collectible. So you have people collecting football cards, baseball cards, all sorts of rare items, the first edition of a comic. And what they're doing is creating digital versions of those. And so again, you can buy one of 10 copies of the first edition of Superman. And so therefore there's a value. And when you've got a generation of people who've grown up digital, they don't really care about the paper stuff. To them, the digital stuff is more valuable. The people who bought the Gucci shoes NFTs, their value have gone up like 10 times. So there's some interesting stuff going on there. And then there's kind of the new stuff coming through where you're adding functionality. So you might buy an NFT for your football team. And every season when they issue a new kit, automatically the NFT is updated. You might be able to take, and you can do now, you could take one moment from, let's say, Hamilton, one song or one moment in a song and capture that into an NFT and sell it as a rare collectible. You could be at a sporting event or a live concert and literally tap on your phone and say, I want this captured as an NFT. And you'd be the only one to own it. So you're creating this whole new collectibles market. And then you've kind of got some crazy things going on, which I don't yet understand. So I'm trying to think of the band. One of the big kind of US super rock bands, but they have an NFT that was sold for $1 million. And it basically allowed you a front row seat at all their gigs forevermore. Now, it kind of relies on them playing a lot of gigs. And it had some other content. You got some unique stuff from them because you were one of the holders of these golden tickets. But the imagination is the thing that's driving this thing. There's an unlimited set of ideas about what you can do with these things. And when we start to show clients that actually you've got this entire history of stuff that you're not doing anything, well, you might have had 50 different types of plane and decor for your planes. Well, there's a bunch of plane nerds out there who want to collect those images of every BA plane there's ever been and collect them. And then other BA plane nerds will buy them from you, and the price will go up just in the same way as anything in the real world would. So a lot of brands are waking up to the fact that they can do clever things with NFTs. They can make new revenue streams from NFTs and just create a whole new set of possibilities.